Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. For those who just walked in, I created a bit of a roundtable up here in hopes that we'll all kind of come close together and have more of a conversation together. But please, of course, do what you're comfortable with, stand up, get water. You know, we're here together for a little while. I love that you started with that, Natalie, so I want to encourage people to do what feels right for them here. So also just a little bit of a dynamic on translation, just to note up front. So we've got some people online and we've got some people in the room, which is its own thing that can be challenging. But we've also got a couple of language in the room. And so we have a translator on Zoom that will do a bit of a short translation for short spouts of Spanish. So we're hoping that gets integrated pretty well. We'll see how that works. But okay, so let's get started. So welcome. This is the session on critical global education for community psychology, challenges and possibilities within and across global North and South. And there are a number of names listed here. Not everyone could be here today. So just to note, we have myself, TIFFENY JIMENEZ, we have GINO, GRONDONA-OPAZO, Christopher SONN, DICKY PEUPESSY online, and WOLFGANG Stark here. I will be bringing in some notes from PETA and James and yeah, them too, and JORGELINA throughout the session. Okay, go ahead and share. Sorry, I thought that was up. Okay, so just to say one thing, actually, just a little bit of context for this session here. 2021, we were coming out of the pandemic. I put out a call of interest around some questions that we'll look at in a little bit more detail in 2021 during the pandemic when we were considering opening up our program at National Louis to anyone around the world. And I wanted to be sure I understood the global context so as not to replicate further harm with students in different locations in the world. Turned out there were a number of others interested in our field who were asking similar questions. So not everyone who has participated in ongoing dialogues are here today, but we'll bring some other thoughts in as much as possible. So first of all, I just want to set the scene a little bit. So I'd like us to all imagine a burning fire or consider one visually here, whichever is best for you. I'd like to give a bit of a background on how I feel into this space, this social space, this collective. Thus far, I consider myself to be the fire keeper of this space. So what I mean by that is when we think about a fire, the fire is a light in the dark. It could be a way to find a way home. A fire provides warmth from the cold. A fire is a place where people come to boil water for tea or to cook. It's also a place to sit and connect with others about lessons learned, storytelling, and seeking support. So the fire keeper is someone who keeps the fire burning, ensures that there's kindling, stokes the coals, keeps it lit for others, and maintains the safe quarters. It has been my hope that this space would be a learning community, a place where critical questions about our place in the world, our experiences of higher education, and community connections are considered with care, with a sense of interconnectedness, support, and personalismo, or what we would consider when you connect and feel held. We all contribute to this at the extent is possible for each of us and part of a burning desire to participate in these dialogues. So what has been shared in this space in previous sessions has been saved, shared, and brought back over time to bring our learnings back into dialogue with new questions and new directions. It is an emergent collective. Our relationships have also deepened in many ways, and the space continues because questions continue to arise. And today we hope to consider the unique dynamics of being positioned in either what we refer to as the global North or South, and maybe even considering East to West. thought you saw that there. All right. And then just before we get to the content, I just wanted to mention that there is currently a website I collected for this, and not for any particular purpose, except to show a little something about what we're doing. And so that there's a space in the world that says, this is a group, we're saying some things, and here are the things we're saying things about. So I could see this being just the beginning, with many ways to grow into this online space or some other. Even the name can change, but for now we refer to this as the Critical Global Education for Community Psychology, indicating that we are being critical of the existing systems that uphold academic disciplines and associated global dynamics. So where have we been and what have we learned? This is our third gathering. This one is it is the first actual in-person one. So in 2021, we were at the SCRA Biennial. Then we were invited by GINO in Ecuador at the time through the International Congress of Community Intervention and Praxis in 2021. And then today, the International Congress of Community Psych. So I just want to cover a little bit up front about what we've learned from these different spaces. The first one at the biennial was called the Reimagining of Community Psychology Education within a Global Context. And just to highlight a few points, I've really summarized this, so there's more to go with this, but here are some things to take away from that session. In reimagining, we want the development of ongoing self-reflexivity. We want to view teaching as a tool for transformation. We want to root local dialogue in a global perspective. Create a global sense of community, cultivate relationships and shared spaces. Build global collaborations working towards change, not reproducing harm. Build alliances grounded in critical questions about global knowledge systems. Subvert aspects of universities dependent on neoliberal capitalism. Build community from a sense of solidarity, such as transnational alliances. Understanding how nations maintain problem power dynamics. Consider developing non-traditional publication venues and building on existing local resources, such as the ICCP, Global Journal, etc. The second session in Ecuador was on Zoom at the International Congress of Community Intervention and Praxis. The title of that session was Problematizing the University, Critical Global Community Psychology and Dialogue. This was in the fall or November 15th in 2021. There were about 100 participants in that session, all Spanish speakers. So some things we took away from that, and the guiding questions for that, the guiding questions were, what do our communities learn from universities? And what do our communities teach universities? And how can we envision ways to continue disrupting universities to assist in creating structural and social or cultural transformation? So some of the points from that session were about the relationship specifically between university and community. So university should learn with community, knowledge, organization, culture, resilience, resistance. Communities can help university plan action inquiry related to needs. Community can problematize university privileges. There must be processes of mutual support between community and university. Build a global community, thinking in terms of encounters or meetings. Universities can facilitate connections between different communities. And university community, one or the other, can create forums where communities feel safe and share ideas without judgment. So before we get to this, we were going to do some individual 3 to 5 minute talk out from each one of us to speak a bit about our own individual positionalities and challenges. But just to give you a sense of the kinds of questions that have that emerged out of our dialogues over time, these are the questions that we're sort of grappling with. And these are not required for us to talk about today, but something to consider. And then we can open it up for any questions that are growing within you by the end of this. What are our views on the distinctions between the global North versus South? And what does it mean? What distinctions did we hear today on the experiences across North and South regions, if any? And what are the implications for educational institutions located in either the North or South locations? What are the implications for how our educational settings in community psychology or in general can support action scholarship that addresses these larger dynamics across regions? And then where do we go from here? So I've got a bit of an order here where I've got Dicky going first, and I can't see him, but maybe we can get the PowerPoint. Excuse me, excuse me. Could we switch this? So yeah, great. Hi, Dicky. Are you okay with going first?
If it's possible, maybe I'm going third or fourth. Is it okay?
Okay.
Sorry.
Do we have a volunteer? we could volunteer.
I'd like to hear first from people who join offline, who join on-site in Naples, actually. I'd like to hear from you guys first, if it's possible. Sorry.
Okay, Dicky, you're off the hook for now.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Tiffany, and thank you all for coming here. Maybe I thought what might be helpful is for me to give a little bit of just an overview of the context of psychology, community psychology training in Australia, because I think globally the training models are actually quite different. And they lead to different sorts of possibilities for people. So I am Christopher SONN. I am originally from South Africa, and I have done most of my postgraduate studies and training as a migrant, cisgendered, racialized man in the Australian context. All of my postgraduate study was in Australia, and I entered in my postgraduate years a community psychology program, and I think it was developed by Adrian Fisher. It was one of two programs in the country that was actually called community. That is actually called applied psychology with the community stream. So one was at another university, Edith Cowan, which is in Western Australia. And in Australia, the system is that if you train in psychology, people will do, I think it's 4+2 now, is that right? 4+2, so it's a bachelor's degree of 4th year, and then you have 2 years of training so that people become licensed. So that's one pathway of becoming a practitioner or a registered license, or licensed, I think is probably the term that people would use. Community psychology has always had a fairly contested history. It's always struggled for survival because of the dominance of the clinical training model. And I think that might be the same in lots of other places also. So at the moment we have, and Dicky was at our university for some time, but at the moment we have got, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think I've got a couple of other people from Australia, you can say, we've got one course, one program in the country that actually graduates people who will say that they are community psychologists. So to say that you're a psychologist, you need to be licensed and registered, yeah, and so on. So part of the work that I've been involved in that program up until 2 years ago. And up until that point, I've started to think about what are some of the other ways in which we can train people in community engaged research and action. Yeah, that doesn't go through that pathway. So part of our program, Tiffany, if you can put that website I've put it at VU, and so Roshani and Sam, who's here, are two of the people, and I think Dicky is also someone who's gone through the PhD or the doctoral training program. And so our research programs are slightly different. I think they're slightly different because they 4-year programs that often is fairly individual in the pursuit of knowledge production. So we've created, I don't know, yeah, so I don't know if we can show that. Well, I just want to show the, so maybe go to just the home page, the home, yeah. So I think, so we've been trying over time to bring psychology out of the discipline, because often the discipline trains in a fairly insular way in the discipline only. So we've been trying to figure out how to create a space at our university that brings different disciplines into conversation, that focuses on the way in which we can mobilize university towards change agendas. So this has been going for quite some time. So we've accumulated a whole series of things, and our projects are typically community engaged. So we develop partnerships with agencies like the one that Roshani, who reported this morning, works with, that addresses, and for us it's been, and for me specifically, it has been around the issue of race, racialization, and other forms of structural exclusion. So the research program that we've developed that brings honors or fourth year students and some of the master students into projects, applied projects, as a sort of a liminal space or border space, where we don't only have psychology students, but we have students from different and academics from different areas who come into the place to participate in engaging with various knowledges. So it would be critical race, indigenous knowledges, decolonial work, and so forth, because a lot of that is not central to psychology curriculum. We teach fairly foundational, fairly Eurocentric sorts of models. So part of what we've been trying to do is to engage with some of the other sorts of knowledges that's available, and how we can create new ones with the communities, the various migrant diasporas, but also how do we engage with indigenous people and indigenous communities who've said that psychology has always been and continues to be part of the colonial project. So this has raised some opportunities for us to think about community psychology, which is probably more progressive. And I think that there's critical psychology, but that isn't necessarily called a doesn't lead to a license, but it's an orientation, yeah, towards the approach. So I think that's I think it's important for me to say a little bit about that, because the nature of the profession, the structures that governs and regulates it, shapes to some extent some of the possibilities. The research training that is less governed by the rules and regulations of the discipline, or opens up other sorts of spaces. So it's in those other spaces that we now are interested in engaging with how do the global dynamics of race, of racialization that continues to impact upon people as they make life and community in the Australian context, and how do we connect those experiences up to that longer histories, and also the current expressions of coloniality. But it's not only that focus on power and the horrible expressions of power. It's also trying to look at what are the modalities of re-existence, or what are the ways in which communities that are marginalized are able to create possibilities that draws on ancestral knowledges, that creates alternatives within systems. And so that's why we try and figure out what happens at this interface between community, and also trouble between university and community, I should say, but also trouble this binary, because often, and I think Tiffany made a point earlier, that also how do we use the university capitals, yep, to platform and to shift and so on. So our work in terms of this network and the work that I've been involved with is concerned with engaging with and working and shifting the perspective from the mainstream lenses that we've inherited, but also to understand how do we engage with indigenous sovereignty, indigenous concepts, what are the sorts of tensions and challenges, what are the risks around appropriation, what are the possibilities for ethical, epistemological dialogue, and then what are the possibilities for fostering and sustaining solidarities that challenges and reflects on the very knowledge production systems that we mobilize. So it's an invitation to what Nolo and Walsh says, the creative joy of interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary engagement. And then also to think, what are the implications of pushing beyond the sorts of boundaries that comes with professionalization and so forth. So that's my 20 minutes. It should have been 3, but yeah.
Okay, no, that's good. Great. Who would like to go next? Do you want to go, GINO? Wolfgang? Yeah.
I didn't want to go first because although I'm a community psychologist, we don't have a community psychology program. And when I entered my university, I realized there's even no psychology program. So the work I've done was from the very beginning transdisciplinary, because students came from all kinds of subjects, from all kinds of programs, because they've been interested in organizational and community psychology. This ended up by doing something different, trying to kind of integrate community psychology into the university, although there's no community psychology program or no psychology program. We adopted community service learning and community service learning for all subjects and for all disciplines. So that's, and I guess you're all familiar with community service learning, but this caused in Germany a different kind of movement where we started in the beginning with 5 universities who adopted the idea of project-based learning based on community service learning, linking the university to the community. And it ended up having after 15 years, having a network of about 50 universities doing community service learning in Germany and in Austria and in Switzerland. So the German-speaking countries, so-called. And out of this work, about 5 years ago, we started a special group which is called Universities of the Future, because we figured that it's not enough, and that's maybe part of one part of my message. I believe it's not enough that we just change education within one discipline, but we have to go beyond, like you did with your institute as well. So, and what we try to start, and we're still in the progress, is debate how does a university in the future look. So imagine 30 years, imagine 20 years later, what would be the university, given the fact that we don't need to transfer knowledge anymore at the universities based on digitalization, because the knowledge is there, so we don't need to have university lectures or something like that, but we need to kind of train students to think, to reflect, to listen, and to ask questions. And so that's the basic idea. And out of this university network for social responsibility, so that's the word, or how we call it, we started a debate about and a discourse about the University of the Future. This was highly influenced from my side from Stanford 2025. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. Stanford University in 2020, I think 2020, 2019, started a process coming out of the School of Design for Design Thinking, which is kind of not an integral part deliberately not an integral part of the university system, but it's there and it's kind of trying to influence the university system. And they started, they offered a time machine. And they said, well, imagine your university in 10 years or something. So it must have been 2015, so 2025. So 2025, that's close. It's coming. And they kind of reinvented the whole idea of university. They said, well, who says that a student is finished a professional after doing the 4+2 schedule? Why don't we ask students to do maybe 3 semesters and then come back and then they study again, bring their knowledge from the community or from the practice, and then they go again and then they go again. They called it loop university. Other versions, other types of universities they developed as a university where you start with your passion. So they ask students, what is your passion? What do you bring with? Are you a musician? Are you a dancer? Are you a writer? Are you, I don't know. And then they assign 2 professors or 2 teachers to this person as mentors or as coaches. And they say, well, we help you to develop your passion. And that's part of your assignment. That's the important part. So it's a very individualized type of thing. Like in Finland. In Finland, they have similar things. So what we started is a debate about what could the University of the Future look like. And we kind of, in a way, we very radical and dreamed of a completely new institution. So for instance, in Finland, they have one university where they really radical put it upside down, the university system. They say, well, if you want to learn about entrepreneurship, you start with your business right away. After 6 weeks, you get some seed money from the university, and then you start your business, and then you go. And when you need to learn something about leadership, here's the book, same book assignments, same literature and everything. And after 2 or 3 years, you're finished, and you have this, you have the same assignments like a traditional university, but in a different way, because you use the things, you use the books or the knowledge when you need it, and not when it's on the program. So this is called Team Academy. So you can look it up in the internet, and it's spread worldwide. So they, because there was one specific assignment that they needed to have. They had to promise to earn as much money with their business to travel around the world as the last. It's like a master, you know, the master thesis is travel around the world, spread the word, bring it to others. And that's how they spread the word on the program. And interesting enough, after 15 years, still 95% of all projects travel around the world. This was before pandemic, before lockdown, so this may have changed now. So based on these experiences and based on the experiences we had we did in German universities and the network, we started the debate, and we came up with a kind of a model. How could the University of the Future look like? And that is what we call the challenges for University of the Future. And the University of the Future basically is something like what we call a resonance space. So it's resonating to the needs of communities, also to not only communities in terms of neighborhood, but also communities in terms of business, in terms of organizations, in terms of non-profit, profit organizations, whatever. And what we propose is to use this resonance space and this project-based learning for what Otto Schama is calling transformational literacy. We don't have a pointer, right? So it's up there. So it's kind of a deeper version of learning and teaching. So it changes the whole thing of teaching, the whole idea of teaching. And when I entered Amsterdam University as a visiting professor, my first question to them was, when do you start your semester? And they said, we don't have semesters, so we can't tell you. Because they decided, based on the idea of community engagement and profit learning, project-based learning, semesters are no good, because you kind of deviate students from different subjects. So you have one subject on Monday and so on and so on. And they decided we have 6 weeks project-based learning, and there's only one subject and the students meet every day. So it's maybe it's something like a project-based internship, you could call it in different. And that was a surprise to me. I said, does it fit, and is it allowed to do these kind of things? So this was kind of inspiring our ideas. So we try to link what we say. We need to link transformational literacy, so these kind of deeper learning formats, with basic research, of course, that's important. We need to establish something which we call a mutual coaching. Like I said, what is your passion? How can I help with your passion? We try to establish learned how to collaborate, so that the art of co-creation, that's not just going to a community and say, let's collaborate, because you need to know what to do. So that's in business, that's in other parts as well. Many people don't really know what to do when they collaborate. That's why it doesn't work very often.
Could you please share the screen?
Oh, you don't see it? Okay.
Now we see.
Oh, thank you. So what we also think it's important that we rethink status, role, and hierarchy in universities. For instance, the Finnish example, they skipped the status of professors. So they don't have professors. The professors turned into coaches and mentors. And that's a different role, because they don't teach anymore. You just follow the project and try to help the project. You redesign the relationship between business, civil society, and university, but also, and that's maybe important, create gaps, create in-between spaces. That's maybe the most important thing, or like free spaces for reflection and creativity. So you don't teach the knowledge and then you believe, okay, it's digested and then it will go out again when you have exams. But you need time to digest. You need time to collect and to network the different experiences both students and teachers have. And so we think it's important to use things like experience labs, which are done in other places as well. So that's not entirely new. That's not just radical, but the whole thing is meant like a, like I said, a resonance space. And what we're now doing is to establish something which we call seed bombs. It's kind of the idea, And that's maybe my last message and my proposal we could think about. Why don't we develop something like a traveling university where you kind of use the best transformative learning places and you travel around and bring together your experiences and learn together and share it in a place like the website you created and go ahead with that. So it's in my opinion, it's just a start. So it's nothing. A lot of things are there already in little pockets. So you find a lot of little transformational or innovative pockets in each university, but students can't go there and can't go to the other place because it's not, they can't be assigned to that by the university. They have to go to one university. And there are many other ideas which are built in there. So, but I will won't go into deep to that. So I can do it in a discussion. So that's our experience and our work we're doing, which is kind of beyond community psychology. At the same time, what I believe is that although it's beyond community psychology, we bring community psychology into the university, and not only to psychologists, but also to engineers, philosophers, whoever.
Gino, you want to go next? Okay, let me just make a note to let's see, Dora, I just want to let you know that we're going to need your assistance at some point here. So go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I'm Gino Grondona. I come from Chile, Latin America. I work in public university, Valparaiso University and Playa Ancha University. I teach community psychology in pre and postgrad, and I work in community project in territory. I need translate, digamos, but no speak English. Yeah, okay.
I think it's okay.
Bien. A partir de las cuestiones que se habían inicialmente planteado para este espacio de discusión,
Okay, do you want me to go in small sentences?
Yeah, I think he's going to pause and then you pop in.
Great. Well, first, just a disclaimer. I'm not a professional translator. I'm just attending the conference, but I'll do my best.
We thank you for being here.
Yeah. So Gino was saying that from all the questions that has been put on the table up to this moment,
yo me quiero referir específicamente a dos temas: la distinción o el significado, el sentido de la distinción norte-sur que habíamos conversado, y en segundo lugar a estos desafíos de la universidad que estamos construyendo.
he wants to refer particularly to two topics. The first one, the distinction between this concept of global north and global south, and the second one, the constitution of this global university that we now lately discussed.
En primer lugar, desde donde yo vengo, la distinción, ¿no es cierto?, geopolítica norte-sur nos parece totalmente imprescindible y válida en el momento actual.
From where I come, the distinction between global north and global south seems like something particularly crucial and fundamental.
Y en ese sentido, ya lo hemos discutido durante estos días también en la conferencia, para nosotros la colonización, la colonialidad no es un hecho histórico, es un proyecto político en curso.
And for us, from what we have been discussing these days within the conference, this is actually an ongoing coloniality project for what we understand of it.
Y en ese sentido, yo diría que se puede visualizar de dos modos. El primero, como frontera.
It can be seen in two ways. The first one as a barrier, as a frontier.
En ese sentido, observamos y reconocemos esa distinción como la instalación de un dispositivo de negación y de dominación epistémica, política, económica, cultural e idiomática.
And we see this as a system that includes an oppression, considering an epistemic oppression and considering, perdón, ¿me puedes repetir las diferentes opresiones?
Epistémica, política, económica, cultural y lingüística.
So the different oppressions would be also political, cultural, and epistemic.
Idiomática.
And also of language. Idiomatic.
De hecho, durante estos días de conferencia, muchos de nosotros hemos visto también esa frontera idiomática en esta conferencia, y quiero comentarles que para muchos y muchas que venimos de América Latina, eso es violencia también.
And I also want to comment and address this fact that even in this conference, this particular frontier, the language barrier, for many of us who come from Latin America, is perceived as a form of violence.
Pero por otro lado, también observamos la distinción norte-sur como una posibilidad, como unos puentes de conexión entre nuestras distintas experiencias del mundo.
On the other hand, we perceive this differentiation between global north and global south as a possibility, as a bridge, as an opportunity.
Exacto, para las diferentes experiencias del mundo que tenemos desde el norte, desde el sur y desde los sures que hay en el norte y viceversa.
An opportunity to bridge the gap between the different experiences that we have in both these territories.
Y en ese sentido, observamos con mucha atención e interés las fracturas, las grietas que se abren entre norte y sur, que nos permiten construir lo que estamos haciendo acá, colaborando, dialogando, compartiendo, porque nos parece que nos permite reconocernos como partes también de un mismo planeta y de una misma experiencia global.
In that sense, we look attentively to the cracks between north and south, and through these cracks we see how we can co-create and collaborate in the experiences that we have together in these different territories.
Y en ese sentido creemos que estos espacios, como los que estamos construyendo desde el Critical Global, ¿no es cierto?, Education, es justamente un espacio para reconstruir esperanzas y colaboraciones y vínculos entre nosotros y entre nosotras.
And in that sense, we see this space of the Critical Global, this roundtable, as a space for us to build collaboration, to build hope, and to try and see alternatives to the work that we are doing.
Eso en primer lugar, ¿no? En segundo lugar, sobre los desafíos de la universidad, cómo desde algunos países de América Latina lo estamos construyendo.
On the second hand, I wanted to highlight the challenges that we are having from Latin America.
Nosotros creemos y estamos impulsando la apertura de la universidad al diálogo con saberes que provienen de los conocimientos ancestrales de los pueblos indígenas y también de los conocimientos populares que habitan nuestros territorios.
We are particularly interested in opening university and opening possibilities to include knowledges that are ancestral knowledges and popular knowledges to enrich our universities.
Y en ese sentido promovemos la apertura de la universidad como un eje central en lo que es la construcción de un nuevo modelo universitario que dialogue hacia adentro y hacia afuera con las comunidades.
And in that sense, we really want to open university to a dialogue that can be open to these different possibilities of co-construction between these ancestral knowledges, popular knowledges, and the knowledge of university.
Creemos que ese es un camino, dentro de otros caminos sin duda, que nos va a permitir desmontar la colonialidad del saber que está también expresada en la universidad tradicional sobre la cual estamos tratando de transformar.
And we hope that this will be an exercise of decolonization of knowledge and an opportunity to break through the mainstream system that sustains current university logic.
Eso, muchas gracias.
Thank you all.
Gracias, Dora. And Gino, do you need her to assist with the English? Do you need her to also assist with English? All right. So I was trying to get Dora to assist with the English translation back, but since we don't have this capacity on the Zoom, we're having a little challenge with that. So maybe we can talk more after. Maybe Dora, we could also check in after for later. Okay. Gracias, Gino. And Dicky, do you want to go next?
Yes. Thank you, Tiffany. Hello, everyone. My name is Dicky PEUPESSY. I'm from Indonesia. I'm 5 hours ahead of Naples. It's now 4:15 here in Indonesia, where I'm sitting in front of my computer. It is really privilege to be here and then to have a discussion with you all who are attending offline and also attending online. I'd like to comment on one of the points that Tiffany put up in her introduction about a global knowledge system. I would say global knowledge system follows global economic system, and that gives big influence on how universities operate, and especially in a university in global South countries like in Indonesia. So to begin my comment, I'd like to put in a context of by describing briefly the history of Indonesia and its higher education system. So we declare our independence in 1945. So it's quite a young country, young state, and the first university program, the psychology program at university level in Indonesia started only in the 1950s. That's actually in the university where I'm teaching. I'm a faculty member at the Faculty of Psychology at the University of Indonesia. So it's a flagship university, and it is considered as the biggest, and also top university in Indonesia. So we started psychology in 1950s, And basically, psychology was born and was growing up in Indonesia at the time of the country really in its development and industrialization agenda. So the operation of universities, and in particular psychology as a discipline to be taught to university students, is basically following the agenda of development and industrialization. So we can imagine that basically universities are pushed to produce a workforce, to produce graduates who would fill up positions in companies, in schools that needs to propel the development process and industrialization process as well. So there is not much space for alternatives within psychology in higher education arena in Indonesia, for allowing textbooks, allowing courses that really teach critical psychology, because or any ways for students to be critical, to be more engaged with community problems, to be more engaged with providing solutions for community problems. So basically universities follows, especially psychology department, psychology faculties follow the agenda, the economic agenda, and there is no appreciation, for really psychology students or psychology graduates to be engaged in more in a community work or community field work. So as we talk about community psychology as one of the disciplines that at least for myself, it provides some avenues to be critical, to be more pluralistic, especially if we are talking about methodologies, obtaining knowledge, producing knowledge. I think based on my experience, community psychs provide avenues, provide space for to be critical, to be inclusive, for differences, and really looking at the core problems within community. So in my experience, and as I said earlier, that global knowledge system basically follows a global economic system. And these days, I think we agree, and in the beginning, in her introduction, Tiffany also mentioned about the point of universities dependent on neoliberalism, neoliberal economics and agenda. And I think over the past 5 years, universities in Indonesia, including psychology programs and departments in universities across Indonesia, we started to be preoccupied with some sort of I think the 21st century neoliberal agenda to be introduced in university or higher education. That is the university rankings and metrics. And because, we are in a global north, and we need to follow the standard that is provided by, by the neoliberalism agenda that is hidden in university metrics and rankings. So then, I would say in the second phase of university operation in Indonesia, now we are getting into another agenda that is not really about development and industrialization, but about metrics and university ranking. That means we need to follow global north standard. That is, for publication, that is for measuring productivity for academia, for researchers in the universities. So that's, I think we move from one agenda to another agenda that is not our agenda, that is not bringing students, that is not bringing graduates to really, see and observe and work for their communities and really look at the problems of the communities. So I think that these days these two or the first agenda also becoming more profound. So at the same time, we need to be following the neoliberal agenda with metric and university rankings. Then I can see that my students, the graduates, the psychology graduate, they are now more inclined to or more preoccupied with working with so-called unicorn companies, with a startup and tech companies, and that's how really my students see, the future of university graduate really on becoming employees, becoming staff, becoming, even though they still want to be researchers, for example, but they still want to be market researchers, user interface, user experience researcher for a startup and unicorn companies. So I think talking about critical global education, we need also to think about how we can influence the way neoliberalism agenda and neoliberalism economy operates within universities processes and reality. So I think this is a good opportunity for us to be here to discuss what could be the critical education, critical global education looks like. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dicky. I realize we have about maybe 20 minutes left. I know Chris has to take off, check out of a hotel. So he's going to take off in a minute. But I just wanted to then kind of put in my own positionality briefly and connect it to what I'm hearing across everybody. What's interesting, I'm in the United States, I'm in Chicago, I'm in an urban setting, I'm at a small nonprofit private university that's pretty innovative in the way it thinks about its role with community. But beyond that, we've got a lot of universities in Chicago. We've got a lot of research institutions that have done a lot of harm over the years, and some communities call the universities drive-by universities. That come in and do a lot of harm and then leave, and then they professionally do really well, and nothing changes in the community. There's been a lot of technological tools that have been used to categorize spaces in Chicago, for example, but nothing is really we're going to focus on providing more voice to the communities that are disenfranchised within the decision-making of the area. And so I see a lot of similarities between what I hear Gino talking about, and then I hear what Dicky is experiencing in terms of these larger global knowledge system dynamics around certain places in the world having dominance over what practices, or I mean, what do they call them? Evidence-based practices that are developed in other countries that are then put into practice in places that it was never really intended for. And so the overreach of a lot of our academic systems needs to be put in check somehow. We need to question some of those things. And being in the United States, these are things I did not know about until I started asking these questions with all of these folks. And I can't go back to that now, right? So I'm with all of these folks on how do we do different? How do we continue to keep this critical eye on universities in general, and really encourage these educational spaces to do better? And then another point, just in my own institution, I'm working with predominantly minority categorized individuals, Hispanic serving institution, where language is perceived as institutional racism. You know, there's very similar dynamics. And this is where I come back to the term of local, right? We're local experiencing these issues, but now I see that the same issues are happening in other places all around the world. It's just the people in the North that are of the South are being treated the same way as people in the South, global South. And so, do you see what I'm saying? So it's a lot, it's a lot to take in. And so I just want to be mindful. We have about 10, 15 minutes to chat, and I want to definitely open up to what you're hearing, seeing, feeling, and questions that are coming up for all of you. Let's see. And then I'm going to bring up the questions again. So if we could put the PowerPoint back up just to show what those were. Again, this is where we started with some questions, but we don't have to talk about these things, but these are some things that have been growing in us. And then I wonder if we could, for translation, maybe we'll have Dora. You could ask the question or make a statement, and we'll have Dora respond. Dora, is that okay with you? Okay.
Thank you for the presentations and everyone who commented. This always makes me think about, for those that are then in academic settings, knowing that you have structures and institutions in which you're operating in. I'm just wondering if or how, for anyone that's presenting or is in an academic setting here, if or how any of you have changed the way that you're doing things to the degree to which you can, and if you can share any of those examples. So I'm just thinking about how, I've experienced university in sort of a traditional setting and maybe been exposed to some people that did things non-traditionally. So again, just wondering from the presenters within their own space and place and power, if or how you've been able to do things a little bit differently.
Dora, do you want to say that in español?
Sí, la pregunta era para todos y es como todos están en espacios académicos, la persona quiere saber si desde vuestro punto de vista y desde vuestra posición de poder, si han visto algún cambio o si han podido cambiar algo desde vuestra posición. Dice que desde su punto de vista están en situaciones académicas bastante tradicionales, entonces se cuestiona si tienen experiencias para compartir que sean no tradicionales y que puedan inspirarnos.
And any of us can respond. Dicky, you're welcome to. I just want to make sure that Gino got the question. you want to go?
No, in many countries in Latin America, different experience in this way. In this conference, is 2 or 3 symposios, abordaron, trataron sobre eso in this conference. I many experience, many different and interesting in Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru. Sí, sí, sí.
And then Dicky, let us know if you want to say anything. We just had a session before this where I was talking about some ways we are kind of working with our provost office to question the incentive structures and how they think about what is quality scholarship, and even the way that they incentivize and assess their whole system of teaching and learning at the institution and the assumptions embedded in the practices of that. It's particularly interesting because we also train the teachers of Chicago public schools. And so we've been thinking about education from all levels but higher education, especially because we're training doctoral students, and there's a lot of question about authentic voice and whether or not the methods and theories and concepts that we're teaching are doing more harm than they're helping. And actually, how can we become more emergent in the way that we allow at least doctoral education to happen? And also working with local communities. I think that's the other thing. We've been becoming more aware of the need to partner and develop, co-create different types of educational settings that maybe are located in different regions of the city, and just working on some of those things now. And Dicky, did you want to say something in response?
Yes, there are 3 ways that I'm doing in my context. One is through teaching. I think that's one of the best avenue that I can influence the output. So I think Wolfgang mentioned before about doing more and more project-based learning into the communities. So I really, want or make my students to really get in touch, to be engaged with the community. So that's how I try to do, to influence or to instigate change. The second ways is, I think this has been going on for me about 10 months. I'm entering into the university structure. So I'm entering into the university administration. So I'm trying to influence a change from inside, from the within, the way the mainstream, the dominance operates. So it's a tough struggle. I don't know whether I would be keep standing for more years, but I don't know. But at least this is I'm trying to make to influence a change from inside. That's the second way. The third way is the thing that we are doing right now is building alliance, building a global international alliance with scholars who are really inclined to reevaluate, education in a global setting. And also, I'm trying, even though it's very small, a group, trying to building a national alliance with some of my colleagues in other universities in Indonesia, because there are also some people who are interested in community psychology. That's the 3 ways that I'm doing right now. Thank you for the question.
And then Dora, did you want to say your comment?
Yes, thank you. I was just now as a participant wanted just to call the attention to the fact that we probably might have to start with refusing certain arrangements. And I speak, for example, of funding projects, of research funding projects, where we don't have the capacity to place communities as co-authors of knowledge production. And in many of these projects, we end up extracting or being in a logic of submission rather than having communities as participants and as co-authors of what we are doing. Currently, I'm, for example, trying to place one collaborative piece that I did with refugees and migrants from my community, and it's hard to find a paper, a magazine that will publish it in co-authorship in the way that we are, asking for. And so it's really hard, and I think we have to start by doing some refusing, which is not easy, but I think it's needed.
Dora, can you just quickly say your name, location?
Sure, I'm in Lisbon, Portugal.
And you work at the university? I'm just curious your position to the challenges.
I was doing a PhD. I finished it. At the moment, I am doing this informally, so I continue to do research informally, volunteering with my community, and so we still try to publish and talk about what is going on in the community. But now I am doing it not really from university, although yes, with a PhD, obviously. So the reasons why people are not eager to publish is because we are asking explicitly that we put people who collaborated to this piece as co-authors and not participants.
Thank you. I saw another hand. Do you want to go ahead? And then we'll have Dora translate the question.
It was just let's say an answer to the way we are approaching this kind of challenges. And I'm working at the University of Bologna in Italy, which is one of the oldest public university in the world. And this means that making changes at the institutional level is not so easy. So some kind of transformation are really difficult to get. At the same time, we are also we have been implementing community-based service learning in the last years, and we are trying not only to have this kind of courses and activities for students in psychology, which is not in any case to be taken for granted, because it's an approach that is not probably the one that is appreciated the most by other perspective in psychology. But we are also trying to bring this approach and working with other colleagues in other disciplines. So we are building a small network within our university in order to use this approach to train students with really a strong focus on civic responsibilities and civic competencies. So this is let's say, the way we are trying to approach institutional change within the university. And I think the other point that is really relevant and is connected with what Dora was mentioning is that we are, as community psychology, at least we are in all the, our university is pushing us to, of course, to apply for European grants for research and action that have an impact in the community. And what we are bringing into that is that community partners, that the community organization are part of our project. This is something that we are developing, that we have developed both in service learning, but also founded project, but also in other European projects. So the idea that the community are part of the process, they are involved from the very beginning on preparing the proposal, they will have resources for working with us. So, and I think that in a way, all the Horizon Europe program, which is challenging and really demanding, leaves us the opportunity to do that. because there is a value in terms of co-creating, valuing different knowledge, valuing transdisciplinarity. So we are trying to use this opportunity to bring our own perspective, and this can be really powerful in terms of also changing the way we are training students, we are working with other colleagues.
And then you're okay, Gino? Okay, no need, Dora. Thank you. Wolfgang, did you want to go?
Just to add, I wanted to highlight what Dicky was saying, that is very important to in our experience at least, to create something which can maybe a parallel, evolve as a parallel system to the traditional university system. So to create networks, and that was kind of our success story, I guess, both in Germany and in Europe. So we have a European Association for Service Learning in Higher Education. And just recently, and that's maybe important for our network or for our group, just recently the UNESCO network for higher education, that's global. They adopted some of our ideas. They brought it in officially in the last meeting in Barcelona a couple of months ago. And I think that's a good opportunity. So that's a door which seems to be a little bit opening. And so maybe we need to push a little bit more in order to have that occasion. And I think up to now, the networks, and we have another meeting right after this about the Aurora network, which is a university network of European universities. And we will on Monday have a workshop here with the Aurora network on co-creation. It is still the global north from my perspective. So I think the innovative thing would be really to establish a network and to use the different knowledges from global south and global north and bring it together and create something new maybe. So it's a good opportunity right now. So we are on the right time.
It's good. Gino, do you want to, you're good? Okay. It's too long. Yeah. Okay, so we are at time, but I think that is just to leave a question on the table. It's really that, why should we try to change universities? Should we be trying to change them, or should we just go outside of them? And then maybe it's a little of both. I feel like once you're in something that you just want to be out of because it's not working, it's like, how long do you sit in it, or do you fight in it before you just decide we need to just end it, right? But just something that I know I've considered and others have as well. Yeah.
I struggle with that, like in or out of the university.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for the students, it's a question of economics.
Mm-hmm.
When they go to university, they get a degree and they get a better job. Minton.
Dora, do you want to add a little?
Yeah, I was just commenting here on the chat after what I think it was Wolfgang who was speaking just before on the innovative funding schemes that are available to sort of have these more inclusive projects. But in my perspective, these innovative funding schemes usually are available in rich countries. And so we continue with the exact same logic. And I wonder sometimes if these innovative funding schemes are not actually just perpetuating the status quo. They feel better because they are available, but actually they are not making a lot of difference. And from people who are coming from grassroots and want to speak to power and want to present some of the actual problems they are dealing with to academia, it's really a struggle. It's not it's not even easy to step inside university. And so there's so many barriers, as GINO was also pointing out in his presentation, starting with the language and then going all the way up to administrative bureaucracies, to the status of who belongs in academia, who has a place in academia, who can speak in academia, and then who can publish, and so on and so on and so on. So yeah, it's hard to break these very strong barriers.
Thank you. You want to make the last comment? No, no, you're good. No, okay. All right, all right. Last comment, all right.
Just the question of in and out and the innovative schemes which are still in the rich countries. My experience is that you need to be in both systems. You need to create your own system, a parallel system, not just to go out and stay there. So it's not a kind of a paradise thing, but to, in order to prove or to show this is working, and in order to make traditional university systems jealous, because then they will buy you in. And that's what happened in Germany. So and there are still a lot of challenges. So we are trying to convince universities that they always also have to pay for the communities as partners, because they are not for free. And so, and the next step and the next challenge will be to cross to build the bridge between North and South. So that's not easy, but yeah.
Thanks everyone for coming. Thank you everyone online. Hey, Noria, Miles, thank you for being here. Daniel, Dicky, Aaron, Christina, Thelma, Miles. Let's continue these conversations. If anyone wants to stay connected and be a part of the ongoing dialogue, who knows where this will go, let me know. Put your email in the chat. Happy to take anyone's information. Thank you.